A week after the Brazilian Grand Prix in the rain, the drivers and teams moved on to Argentina and the sunshine of Buenos Aires for round 3 of the Formula One World Championship. On the front row, current championship leader Damon Hill and double world champion Michael Schumacher. On the second row, Jacques Villeneuve and Jean Alesi, potentially explosive duo starting from behind the two old adversaries. Gerhard Berger, the experienced man, on row 3. Jos Verstappen in the footwork heart out-qualified both McLarens and a Ferrari to take his place on row 4. On row 6, Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the Sauber, plenty of promise from him, but no points going into Argentina. And further down the order, 2 disappointed drivers on row 8, Martin Brundle and Mika Salo, both would have wanted to have qualified further up the grid. Towards the rear, Pedro Lamy and Ricardo Rosset, the 27-year-old Brazilian, starting only his 3rd Grand Prix. And on the back row, the 240s with 5.3 seconds covering the grid. Hill on pole position, the 13th of his career as the race started, and he made a good start, but it was Gerhard Berger from row 3 who absolutely eclipsed Villeneuve in front of him. Coming down to the first corner, it was Hill with Schumacher just slotting into second position. Then the 2 Benettons. The McLarens both made decent starts, and so did Barrichello in the Jordan. Everybody safely through the first corner, although some cars were running wider than others and into the dirty part of the circuit. Verstappen ahead of Hakkinen. Verstappen in the footwork arrows, the footwork team having been taken over by Tom Walkinshaw a week ago. Walkinshaw having moved across from Ligier. Top 4, obviously in a class of their own. They started to open up a gap between themselves and the rest of the field, led by David Coulthard in 5th place. Schumacher tracking Hill. Schumacher, the double world champion, against Damon Hill, who has real aspirations of lifting the 1996 title. This was Villeneuve coming down the inside of Coulthard, and Villeneuve moving up to 5th place. His poor start had relegated him down to 9th at one stage. Hill opening up a gap between himself and Schumacher the first of the leading drivers to be called in for a scheduled pit stop. Schumacher, for 21 laps, ran quickly but without actually threatening the man ahead of him, the race leader Damon Hill. 2 Benettons, John Alesi and Gerhard Berger, holding down 3rd and 4th. End of lap 21, Schumacher, the first of the leading drivers into the pits. Schumacher needing a good stop if he was to preserve his position in the points. Ferrari's pit work very solid throughout 1995, proving equally so in 1996. Schumacher underway in 7.1 seconds, but even so, a stop that relegated him from 1st to 4th. Damon Hill's first stop, 9.6 seconds. Fortunate that it coincided with the second place man coming into the pits at the same time, so Hill was able to get in and out without losing the lead at the end of lap 24. Race order: Hill, Schumacher back up into 2nd, Alesi 3rd, and Villeneuve now in 4th place. Hill's confidence high after winning at Melbourne and Brazil. First real incident of the race involved Luca Badoer in the Minardi. He collided with Pedro Diniz in the Ligier and turned over. Took some time for the driver to extricate himself from the cockpit. Appeared to have an injured leg. Certainly he was favouring that right leg as he pulled himself clear, and the marshals strangely reluctant to help. Badoer turning right over and saved by his safety harness. The safety car came out and collected the leader Damon Hill ahead of Schumacher and the 2 Benettons, while Badoer's 40 was hauled away out of the danger area. Next incident involved Pedro Diniz in the Ligier. Straight after coming out of the pits, suddenly he was engulfed in a fireball as fuel started leaking from the car and was lit by the heat of the exhaust. Diniz lucky to escape unscathed. The fuel issuing from the side of the car. Diniz in the cockpit suddenly aware of flames bursting out behind him. His cockpit was absolutely swamped by fumes and flames, and he somehow managed to get himself out without injury. Safety car pulled off. The race ready to go again. Schumacher tested a Lacey, hoping to get a flying start on Hill. It didn't work out for the world champion, and Hill retained first place with 40 laps to go. The effect of the safety car, though, meant that the top six were once again bunched up together. Tarsdale Marquez, only his second Grand Prix, tangled with Martin Brundle, and his Minardi went into retirement. No problems, though, for Hill. Once again established himself in first place and then gradually pulled away from Schumacher and Alesi. Alesi's second pit stop, and this one was to prove crucial. Alesi with hopes of finishing at least second behind Hill, but they were dashed when he stalled as he came down off the jacks at the end of the pit stop. That delayed him another 12 seconds, and he dropped position from second right the way down to 8th. Lacey coming out on the circuit and resuming the chase after points. Meantime, Hill seemed to have the full 10 in the bag. It was Berger who was closest to him, with Villeneuve now in third place. So his recovery from that poor start now virtually complete. Schumacher retired with a broken rear wing. That was his second retirement in 3 races. Berger stopped in the pits for 8.6 seconds, which meant that he lost second place to Jacques Villeneuve. And Michael Schumacher, meanwhile, explained what happened to his rear wing. Damon Hill in for his second stop with a considerable lead over the rest of the field. Enabled him to get in and out and retain first place as Gerhard Berger retired for the second time this season. It was Jean Alesi who forced his way up to third with the fastest lap along the way. New lap record around Buenos Aires of 1:29.413. He was closing on Villeneuve in the latter stages of the 72-lap race, but it was Hill out in front and on the way to another commanding victory, his third in 3 races. Checkered flag out for him after a near 2-hour grueling event. Hill delighted at the finish, recording his 16th Grand Prix victory in 54 Grand Prix. Villeneuve second, Alesi third. And the other point scorers, Rubens Barrichello for Jordan, Eddie Irvine for Ferrari, and Jos Verstappen just pipping David Coulthard to the final point and earning his first point since Portugal in 1994. Hill and Villeneuve arrived in Parc Fermé to be greeted by the applause of the crowd gathered down there. And Hill delighted to finish the race. He'd been feeling none too well in the week that he'd been in South America. And to have completed this victory in such commanding style was obviously sheer delight for him.